Madam Clerk.
Resolution 107-13 amends the rules of procedure and organization of the Council of the County of Hawaii by amending Rule Number 5, Committees, relating to the ability of a committee chairperson to speak on matters before his or her committee, allows the committee chairperson to speak on a matter without relinquishing the chair, provided all members of the committee have had an opportunity to speak and the chairperson is not the introducer of the item considered. Introduced by Mr. Kern.
Thank you. Mr. Kern?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move to approve Resolution 107-13.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Mr. Kern and second by Mr. Kanuha. Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is a rule change just in relation to committees, allowing the chairperson to speak. The way I understand it is in past councils, without having it as a rule, the chairperson has pretty much had an opportunity to speak and deliberate in the committee time, because that's when we are supposed to be deliberating. As we've seen in the past, there has been some issues with that. Most times the chair is allowed to speak, but on certain instances, that is not the case. So this will just make it reasonable and fair. It'll actually save time instead of having to have the council vote on whether the chair committee can speak and getting into a potentially dialogue that's just not going to be conducive to moving forward. So I hope for the support on this. It's pretty straightforward. It'll be basically the same way it has been in the past. We'll just solidify that so we don't have argument on this. Look forward to any comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Ford?
Thank you. I will not be supporting this rule change. This rule has been in existence prior to Mr. Yoshimoto and I ever coming on to the council, and it's there to prevent arbitrary, autocratic, controlling, and abusive behavior from the position of the chair over other members. I disagree with some of the statements that Mr. Kern just said. The chair always has the right to speak if he or she is willing to give up control of the committee while they're speaking, or they have the right to speak if no one else objects. The circumstances that Mr. Kern alluded to is the reason that I personally have objected to him not releasing the chair when he wishes to speak. Many people in the public have observed his behavior towards me and other council members, some very autocratic and arbitrary treatment. I've had complaints from the public in my district. I've had complaints from the public from Mr. Kern's district, and the council's heard complaints from the public about Mr. Kern's behavior. He doesn't like it when anyone else says, no, you can't do this. But he does seem to enjoy treating other people with that type of behavior. So I do not believe in giving any chairperson unfettered control over the council, whether they can dominate them and then also speak on the issue. If Mr. Kern wishes to speak, he can give up the chair for 5 minutes. None of us are going to drop dead for 5 minutes. Or he can start treating all of us equally and not shut down communication.
Ms. Ford, let's just speak to the matter, not to personal situations.
Thank you. You're right, and I apologize. But that is the basis of this rule change, is his behavior. So I will not be supporting this. I believe it gives a chairperson unfettered control, and anytime you give anybody total power, you're going to get absolute corruption every single time. Absolute power, absolute corruption. Thank you.
Ms. Poindexter.
Again, I come from this whole fairness thing, but as I've sat on this council and I've watched previous councils, we've all, as chair people, have had the opportunity to speak, and I don't want this to be about the personalities, because I've seen the last council and the conflict in personalities and how that got in the way with business. And I don't want to look at this in a way of personalities. I'd like to look at it as what is fair. And each of us as committee chairs, every single one of us, has throughout, I know since I've been elected, have been given the opportunity to speak after everyone has spoken. So I'm looking at when I look at what is fair, that is fair. I may have one day a personality conflict with Councilmember Onishi, and maybe he pissed me off the day before or something, and then he's going to go, I'm chairing this committee, can I speak? And I'm going to go, I object, because I'm upset. But that's just the personality stuff, and I want to leave that out when I do vote on this, and I'm voting because what I see is what is fair to all of us. And as chairs, we do have the rules of order and decorum. So if we do misbehave, and any one of us can, say point of order and ask for the rules of order and decorum. So we hold each other accountable, and that's what I like about this council is we agree to disagree, we're compromising, and we make decisions to best work as a team. And I think this brings about just making it fair for everybody and throwing out the personalities. So thank you. I'm actually going to support this because of fairness. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yoshimoto?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, I'm going to give some perspective on the resolution and the rule change. As it's written, my opinion is that it basically memorializes what we've been doing in committee. However, the way in which the matter has been handled by a case-by-case basis under the existing rules. So this rule would basically, as Mr. Kern indicated, make it more efficient because we wouldn't have to ask for permission each time. So I think we have two options. I think, passing the rule would bring probably more consistency in how this matter is handled at the committee level. However, the other concern is you can the suggestion by Ms. Ford is you can just relinquish the chair and get it back in 5 minutes. Actually, when I researched in Robert's rules, that's frowned upon. Actually, once you relinquish the chair, you're not supposed to reassume it until that matter is disposed of. So you can't just jump in and jump out. And the primary reason is because the chair is supposed to be running the meeting, as we all know, rather than participating actively in the discussion process. So my suggestion is either we accept this amendment as a way to do it, or we go back to the strict letter of the rules of Robert's rules, which basically says the chair shall not engage in deliberating in the debate unless they relinquish the chair. So that to me is a clear-cut way of doing it, because right now I think this rule basically just again says what we already do for most of the members, but not all. And I think that's Mr. Kern's concern there. And Ms. Ford is correct too. I mean, there are some situations where sometimes the rules are used in a way that may seem advantageous to certain members. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I think we have two paths. I'd like to hear what other council members think, but I think, again, this is what we already do now, except this would provide some consistency. Or we go back to what Robert's rule says and just says the chair just doesn't participate unless they relinquish the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Onishi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm going to maybe not be supporting this because I want to keep it as how it is, because the chair does have the authority to give up his chair, and most of the times, and then if you see like Councilwoman Willie, she brings up issues within her committee. So what she does is she turns over the chair to the vice chair, and then she just speaks out because that's her resolution. And I think that's where most chairs are going to be speaking, is because of an issue that they brought up. And if it's not theirs, then also at the end of everybody speaking, then they could make comments. And that's how the protocol was from the past. But that's not how the protocol was in the past. In all the years that I've been there, the chair at the end of everybody discussion, they can speak, and that's their. But then it's up to the members. But that's what I'm saying, that there is a protocol, and to me, I'm gonna not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion before I go back to Ms. Ford? Ms. Willie?
Yeah, I had intended to support this, as a way to really encourage goodwill and good faith and among our members, and that I feel really when that everyone should have the opportunity to speak before the vote. But, listening and thinking about that it can be done where we ask, such as at the end of the discussion, and allow it among ourselves, we can breach the rules, that's allowed, or relinquish the chair. I do think, like this morning, I was upset that I had one more thing I wanted to say, and I wasn't allowed. It was call the question. I mean, the call the question, I don't even get to relinquish any chair or fuss or something. I feel the one thing in particular that concerns me in this is it says after each round of deliberation. If it actually said at the end of the deliberation without relinquishing the chair, I would support that, and I would be willing to make a motion to amend. But I think in this case, it's always, are we strict with others and then not with ourselves, and what do we do with rules? I have a problem where at each round of deliberation, each one has spoken, that the chair sort of really taking control at that point. I think I agree with what Councilmember Onishi said. So as it stands, I'm going to oppose it, but if Councilmember Kern were willing to not have it after each round of deliberation, but at the end of everyone else has had the opportunity to speak, so that we don't have to relinquish the chair. I want to hear what the chair has to say, but I feel you can't be jumping back and forth in your hats, and I like it. Let everybody else keep control. You're the moderator, but then when anyone else has something to say, do you mind my speaking? I want to hear you. So I'm not going to make a motion. I don't want to do it right now. Hear what if anyone else has something to say, but if Councilmember Kern were willing to amend this to say after whatever everyone else has had an opportunity to speak, I would be happy to support it. And again, I just want to underscore, I really want everybody to have the opportunity here. We all have different voices and have an opportunity. Even when Valerie disagrees with me, she should have a chance to speak. I appreciate what you're saying. I was disturbed that you weren't able to speak that time, but I do have a problem where you're bouncing in and out during the course of the deliberation. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Ms. Ford?
Thank you. I think Ms. Willie offers a very good compromise, that if the chair waits till everybody's finished, exhausted everybody's statements, and then is allowed to speak, because that's what our last chair did, that's what Mr. Yoshimoto did, and if I remember correctly, that's what Pete did, and I forget about Mr. Heeg. I just don't have a memory of that situation. I don't care if it's committees or it's the council, it should be the same way. So I think the compromise is a reasonable one. I would support that type of amendment. If we want to table this and have Mr. Kern, do that, then I will change my vote and I'll support such an amendment. And if not, then I will continue not to support this resolution. By the way, Robert's rules are very, very strict. As Mr. Yoshimoto said, Robert's rule says the chair never gets involved in the discussion, period. Our rule takes either, and then of course this says he can get involved after every round of discussion. And the middle ground is what we've got now that Mr. Onishi pointed out. The middle ground is you can ask permission, and if nobody objects, you can go on. Or you can yield the chair for the duration of that particular matter, as Mr. Yoshimoto stated. There's three ways we can handle this, and I think that Ms. Willie's suggestion is a very good compromise, and I hope Mr. Kern would accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yoshimoto?
I guess my concern is that, you know, we're talking about this now, but I'm just thinking back about all the times, all the ways in which we handled it. And it seemed as though, you know, committee chairpersons, they seem to like the fact that they could provide their input, you know, after the first round, because that's, you know, that seems to be what was happening with some exceptions. So my only concern is that if we don't do anything and we leave it as it is now, then any council member could just simply object to the chair speaking on the existing rules, and they don't even have to state a reason, because our rules require currently unanimous consent. So that would be another stifling way that, you know, Ms. Willie, I think, just pointed out that she didn't, you know, like the fact that Mr. Kern didn't have an opportunity to speak too. So I guess my message is we can't leave it the way it is, because if we leave it the way it is now, then any one council member could say, no, I object, and then that's it. And then that becomes that stifling effect. The call for the question issue is a Roberts Rule procedure that's just there. We can't change that. That's been in there, you know, ever since Roberts Rules, you know, has been drafted. So I'm okay either way. I again think that the way this is written now is what we already do now. If we do it to the end, that's fine too, because we do that at council. I mean, I'm fine with that too. So I'd like to hear what others have to say. Thanks.
Mr. Kanuha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the compromise of after each round, not each round, I'm sorry, at the end of deliberations, after everybody had an opportunity to speak, the chair would get an opportunity to say their piece, because I do believe that, you know, the chair, you know, has valuable information, as everybody said. So I'd have no problem with supporting the compromise. I'm fine either way, though. I support it. I support what we were doing previously. I support what this is. I understand what Mr. Kern is trying to do, but I appreciate the compromise too. So whatever everybody else agrees with, I'm fine. Whatever Mr. Kern wants to do, I just want to hear what he has to say too. Thanks. Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Yoshimoto.
Sorry, one more thing. Okay, so keep in mind, because what I've always tried to do in the past, and I'm doing right now, is that once the chair speaks on the matter, that's it. The discussion's over. Chair doesn't speak to influence the entire body. You know, the chair's position is not supposed to say, okay, guys, this is the way I want you to go. That's not the chair's role. But again, the chair has a duty to inform the public of, you know, his or her position. So I just want to make clear that if we make the change towards the end, there should be a clear and bright line rule that says, okay, you call for the vote. So the public knows, the council members know what the chair feels, but again, you don't spur on further debate and further discussion, then that defeats the whole purpose of having the rule. So just so that's crystal clear, because I don't want to see that happen, because I've done it in the past where I've said, you know, is everyone done? Okay, I'm closing discussion, going to have my say, and then we just vote and just leave it at that. Right? Okay, so are we in agreement on that?
I agree with
okay.
that. And so I'd like to make a motion.
Hey, Ms. Willie?
Let's hear.
Before you make the motion, I'll entertain a little more discussion.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Kern.
Thank you very much. I'm fine with the compromise. I do like sticking with the rules. I do get flack for sticking with the rules, my 3-minute rule, the 5-minute rules. I do not, while I may offend Ms. Ford, I do not speak negatively, and I do not speak down to other people, as Ms. Ford does with me constantly, as it happened this morning. I am okay with having it at the end. That's what I was going for the entire time. On more than one occasion, as chair, on something that was not my issue, if it's my bill I bring up, I relinquish the chair and I speak on it. On other issues, I will try to wait till the end. And then what happens is a motion's made before I get to speak. And then it's already in place, so I can't speak on the original motion. So I just want things to be reasonable and fair, and follow our rules. If we have rules there, they should be followed. If it's a 3-minute testify rule, it's 3 minutes. If it's 5 minutes for a council person to speak, it's 5 minutes. It's not, that's how you keep it fair. It's not subjective. It's not favoritism. It's just following our rules. So I have no problem with make an amendment to speak at the end. That's fine, which, as Mr. Yoshimoto said, which would signal that we're going to the vote. So what I'll do is I'll work on an amendment. So I move to postpone till our next committee meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Kern and seconded by Ms. Poindexter to postpone.
What's our next meeting?